Good morning, friends and enemies. Today we are going to be talking about something that I got quite a few questions or requests about, just because in terms of YouTube there aren't that many reviews about this. So if you've read the title, then you already know that one, we are going to be talking about the monochromes today. I have 5 of them. And 2, that I am an ex-Glossier employee. So I was a former editor at the Seattle store. So I do have like proper Glossier knowledge when it comes to these little monochrome eyeshadow palettes things. There are certain things that I can talk about. There are certain things that I can't talk about. So I'll just try to go about this as fast as I can, and as I'll let you know as much as I am allowed to let you know. So the monochromes are not that new anymore. They launched last year with this big ad in the New York Times, I believe, if I remember correctly, but they had a big ad out. There are, oh my god, I can't remember. Is it 10 shades? Is it 10 palettes? These come in 10 shades. It is a fully recyclable compact. It's made of tin. You open it and it is also refillable and has a mirror that pops out. So this tin right here pops out. I'm going to show you. There's a little sliver on the side. You just wedge your finger in that and it just totally pops out and you have an empty tin on the bottom. If you choose to buy just the refill compact, it does have the shade name on the back so that you still know what it's called. In terms of the mirror, there is a notch up here. You just put your finger in there, pops out. It says you look good on the bottom, and it has the classic Glossier smile wave on the back. So just pop it back in, take your compact, pop it back in. So as the name suggests, these are monochromatic eyeshadow palettes. Now, do I think that they could have squeezed a 4th shade in here? Yes. But the way that they thought about the monochromes is that it was about the number of finishes and not necessarily the number of shades that you get. So because we're thinking monochromes, the way that they thought about these colors in particular is that it's meant to be that one shade in an eyeshadow palette. You buy a big, whatever, 9, 12, 15 pound eyeshadow palette, and you end up only using one shade, you know? You hit pan on it, you use it for forever. That's what these monochrome palettes were supposed to represent. It's the one shade that you always hit pan on when you buy an eyeshadow palette. And now you get that one shade in 3 different finishes. So what are those finishes, right? You have a matte shade up here, a satin shade down here, and a metallic shade over here. These are all vegan mica. What does that mean, right? Means that none of the reddier shades use carmine. There are no beetles or whatever that they use to make these eyeshadows. They are all chemically formulated mica. That also means that in terms of the metallic shades in particular, I don't think my camera is really gonna be able to pick it up as well, but the shimmer that they use can be ground up a lot finer versus, you know, natural mica, which then makes them more sparkly and dimensional. And I have to say, these shimmers are they're pretty good. In terms of the refillability of these, they do only refill in the trio. So you can't just refill one shade of the 3. You have to refill this whole trio compact. So that's something else to keep in mind. Yeah, these are also, of course, dermatologically tested and ophthalmologist tested, making them safe for the eyes and face. And it is suitable for contact lens wearers. So that's good to know about these. They thought about that, right? So of the 10 shades, I own 5, and those 5 are unfortunately the only ones that I can really talk to you about here. Of course, I do have experience with all of them because I worked in the Seattle store. And before we get into the shades, there's a couple things that I want to talk about in terms of formula and testing if you do decide to try these at the physical store first before purchasing them either online or while you're there. In the physical store, the way that you are meant to try these out is with a sponge applicator. These are like those standard sponge applicators that used to come with every single, you know, like makeup palette that you would buy from the drugstore. They are not that great, but you know, these are the times that we're in, and Glossier wants you to be able to try these products out as safely as possible. So make sure that you use the sponge doe foot and not the tall doe foot. And by tall doe foot, I mean like, so if you were to look at a lid star You're gonna find a doe foot that looks like this, like a tester doe foot that looks like this. Don't use those for the monochromes. What they do is they're too rough on this formula, so it's just going to scratch the shadows and not pick up. So just make sure you're using the sponge applicators. I don't have one with me because I don't work there anymore. But yeah, just make sure you use the sponge applicators and use that to apply it to your hand or to your eyes. One thing to keep in mind, those sponge applicators, like I mentioned earlier, are not that great. So in terms of color payoff, what I want you to remember is the color payoff that you were getting with those sponge applicators. If you just dip it once, okay, and kind of squidge it around and you apply that on the back of your hand, that is not the color payoff that you would get with these monochromes if you were to use a brush or your finger. So I'm gonna show you with Rosin, the yellow palette. I'm gonna do swatches on the back of my hand so you can see how vibrant they actually are. Because again, those sponge applicators just don't do them justice. So I have some right here. We're going to swatch it right here. This is the matte shade. This is the satin shade. And this is the metallic shade. So as you can see, they're pretty pigmented. They're not gonna be like an indie shadow in terms of pigmented, but we're also talking about Glossier, right? The goal of Glossier is not to, it's clean girl makeup, isn't it? Like cool girl, clean girl makeup, like very like, I look so clean and fresh and dewy and all of that. So, you know, don't expect like major payoff, but it is not bad. If you are a beginner at makeup and you want to try powder eyeshadows, if you weren't a fan of the lid stars or even the sky washes, which I also have. So if you didn't like either of the liquid formula shadows, I highly recommend the monochromes. Now, let's talk about price point, right? Each one of these is $22. Now, for 3 eyeshadows, personally, I would say that that's a lot. Like I mentioned in my original palette video, I did get all of these technically for free. So right before they launched, we had a private in-store editors only like makeup tutorial thing. We had a makeup artist from Seattle come by and show us how to use eyeshadows. It was really fun. And then we were able to choose a shade that we wanted that they then gifted to us. And we also get a credit put into our accounts. That's how I was able to purchase the rest of these. We also get an employee discount, of course. So that's how I was able to purchase all of my monochromes. Let's say that I was not working at Glossier. Would I purchase these? Personally, probably not. I, as you saw, have a huge collection and I probably have these shadows repeat in those other eyeshadow palettes. I have to say, Jute, this is probably the most unique that I have in my collection. And that's mostly just due to the fact that I am very warm toned. Like I'm more like warm neutral. So I wasn't really big into cool toned eyeshadows. So I didn't have a lot of colors like these. But in regards to the actual colors themselves, they are pretty unique. One of the things that I think they really did right when it came to this collection was make unique colors, especially for the target market that Glossier has. You know, most of the people that buy from Glossier do not have collections as huge as mine. And like, good on you, because I'm struggling. But yeah, so that's basically the gist of monochromes and like what it's all about, why they did just 3. Again, it is not about the number of shades that you're getting, it's the number of finishes that you are getting per color. Do I think that it would have been smarter to let consumers pick their own shades and mix and match? Sure. But I don't know what the logistics of that would have been like, you know, especially because these shadows, by the way, I have no idea if they are if they're magnetic on the inside. And I'm pretty sure to pop them out, you would have to heat the bottom, you know, and maybe just put your own magnet in there. So that's one way that you could probably interchange the colors on your own if you wanted. But in terms of the logistics of making these palettes just like refillable and like you could pick your own shades to go in these, I think it would have been smarter in that case to do 4 shades. I think they did this intentionally, like, you know, like it's not like they just said, oh, we're just gonna do a three color eyeshadow pan in a square and not think about people thinking that like this should have been a quad. Like, like, think about it, right? A circle would have looked so awkward. And doing like a rectangle, kind of like the e.l.f. bite size, wouldn't make sense in terms of how they designed this packaging of like a removable mirror and like a tin that you could use after when you finish using your monochromes or if they ever go bad, you know? So I think they made the best of what this packaging could have looked like. It's not my favorite, but I think it's fine. The actual product inside is really, really nice. And like, I really like them. So let me show you swatches of all of them and then I'll do individual ones for each color. All right, so the way I'm gonna go about this is the order that you're gonna find it on the website. So hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier to find which color you're looking for. Also, these labels, they're not usually over here. They're stuck here on the back, but because I store my quad standing up like this and they all look the same, I like to stick the color label on the top so that I can see which shade is in what. So we are gonna start with Mist. This is described as a cool lilac, which it definitely is. So Mist is kind of a harder one for me personally to wear, but if you are very cool toned and you prefer shades like this, I do think that it's a very good option. It's also a very unique shade. So here are the swatches. So of the monochromes, this is one of the few where it's actually the metallic. So I have matte, satin, and metallic. The metallic is actually almost the darkest shade in the palette and the matte is the lightest. So I'm gonna go over the different nuances too in terms of depth in these palettes because I know a lot of people were concerned about them not having depth and I'm gonna tell you right now they don't. Up next we have Jute. This is described as a soft taupe. So for this one you'll see, so again I have matte, satin, and metallic. The satin shade is actually the deepest in this trio. So what you could do is put the matte all over your eyes, buff the satin on your outer edges, like the outer corners of your eyes, and put the metallic all over the lid. Up next is Almond. This is a rosy brown. So you can even really tell how pink leaning this kind of brown is. This was the first one that I chose just because I personally felt like all of the warmer shades that they had were almost too deep for what I wanted. I wanted the depth level of Almond, but I just wanted it to be warmer. But this is Almond. So this one is kind of similar to Mist, where the shimmer is also kind of the deepest shade, but it does vary in tone. And you can see how much shinier the metallic is versus the satin. Second to the last, we have Prairie. This is described as a rich olive. So this one in particular was one that I was pretty excited about, but am almost like the most disappointed in. And I'll show you why. All right, so this is again in order. So matte, satin, metallic. I mean, you can even see it, right? The satin and the metallic are basically the same color. Basically the same. Even in terms of how shiny they are, it's the same, you know? And even on the eyes, it translates. And let me show you again in the pan. In the pan, it does look like the metallic would be shinier than the satin right here, but that's not really how it translates. So this is my least favorite in terms of what I get for my money, but the color is gorgeous. It's just that these two look exactly the same, and that's a little bit disappointing. Like, you see how it catches the light? I don't know, man. I don't know. Okay, the last one that I have is Rosin, and this is described as a golden yellow. This is also the one that I'm wearing on my eyes. So this is similar to Jute, where the satin is your deepest shade. So you could do the same thing where you put the matte all over your lid, buff the satin on the outer edges of your eyes, and put the metallic on the center of your lid, which is what I did with my eye look today. Do I recommend them? I think is probably gonna be a big question that I'll get asked, or is one of the bigger questions that I get asked in store is which one to buy, right? So you have Skywash, you have Lid Star, and you have Monochromes. Which one do I get, right? So these are $18 each. And this is $22 each, okay? There used to be a bundle where you could get 2 Skywashes for $30, making them $15, but that's not available anymore. They discontinued it a while ago, not sure why. So if you're thinking about which one you want to buy and you only want to buy from the Glossier ecosphere, then I would recommend the Monochromes. Just because, okay, $22 versus $18, like $18 for one color versus $22 for 3 shades and a reusable tin and a mirror, okay, and powder products for one, which will last a lot longer than a liquid product will, then I say go for the Monochromes. If you are set on only buying from Glossier, then I would do the Monochromes. In terms of shades, if you have a store near you that you could go to, I do recommend going in and swatching the colors. Online, I'm trying to look at it to see if they're accurate. Okay, you know what? All right, they are. I was just scrolling through. They are accurate, but you have to remember undertones. I think Monochromes in particular really have a way of shifting when it comes to what your natural undertone is. So, you know, for example, Jute. Jute on me is very, very brown gray. Not like a silver cool tone gray. It's a very brown, murky gray on me, which I like sometimes. But other editors that I've seen wear this, it looks like how it looks in the pan. It looks like a light silvery gray on them. So I think when it comes to picking monochromes, your undertone is definitely something you want to think about before you buy something. Another color that really shifts in terms of undertone is Heather. I really wanted Heather because it was so pretty. I'll show you on the website. This is Heather. It's that like ready, this is like, okay, they call it a neutral rose. And if you're scrolling through, you know, it looks so pretty on everybody. And when you look at the swatches, it looks like a neutral rose. But every time that I have tried to put on this color, put it on my eyes, swatch it, even on my hands, swatching it on my hands, it just looks like a bruise. Like this color in particular can really like lean into bruisey territory and can really darken on your skin based on what your undertone is. So go to the store if you can to swatch it. Reddit is also a great resource, by the way, the Glossier subreddit. There are a lot of like really, really nice like people on there that will help you out. You know, there's a lot of swatches available. I don't know if anybody remembers the recent Glossier cloud paint puff debacle. Like, I'm on the Glossier subreddit and I'm also on the Glossier circle jerk subreddit. So it's really interesting to see both sides of the Glossier community. But the whole puff debacle was like crazy. I am going to talk about the Glossier cloud paints in a separate video just because there's a lot that I want to do in terms of the cloud paints. I want to show you guys mixing the colors and stuff like that. If you are interested in that video, please leave a comment down below and like this so that I know that you want to see a video dedicated to the Glossier cloud paints, because they're definitely one of my favorite products and definitely is like the OG when it comes to cream blush products. Like, when I think of like the first cream blush product that I ever tried that worked for me, it was definitely cloud paint. And I have a lot of tips and tricks when it comes to cloud paint that I've taught other guests at the Glossier store when I was there. So I'm very excited to make that video. I personally feel like I rambled a lot in this video, but I think my feelings with Glossier are still slightly conflicted. Like, I do love most of the things that they sell, but I don't really know how I personally feel about them as a company, because I have a personal relationship with them, and that's all I'm gonna say about it, because that's all I'm allowed to say about it. So maybe we'll revisit this in a year and see how I feel about it then. But yeah, that's all I have about the monochromes. If you guys like this video, please make sure that you click that like button. It really, really helps me out a lot. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel so that you can see more from me. Don't forget to click that notification bell so you never miss a video. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!